Hi everybody, welcome back to Voices from the Community here on Ren Xue TV. We've just visited Ngaire in the South Island of New Zealand. In 2010, Ngaire found herself at the epicenter of the Christchurch earthquakes. This is her story about how she used her Ren Xue and her Yuan Qigong practice to navigate this time of crisis for her and her family. Here's Ngaire's story.
The earthquakes lasted 2.5 years basically, or as in the ones happening every day. So it was a really long time. We lived in the red zone for 3 years and we've only just settled with the insurance companies now. What is it? 11, 12 years later. So it's a long thing, and without Ren Xue, I cannot imagine how I would have managed. Even in the first years after the earthquakes, it was my constant support. It was what I always went back to when I was getting really desperate, or just used every day. So even though, unfortunately, the brain works in a way that you still go like this when an earthquake happens. So you still have that physical response. My mental response was different. My internal response was different. The long-term response was just so different. I can't imagine how I would have managed through that time without the support of the practice, the teachings, and the development that you make through the thing. And I think crises are always that thing. You do not learn your hardest lessons until you're pushed to the wire. I've learned my biggest lessons during the hardest times in my life. So the hard times are the hardest, and I think you have to be so grateful when you hit those hard times with a really good tool to learn those hard lessons. And I think Ren Xue is one of those, because after the earthquakes we lost pretty much everything. We eventually lost our house. Between our daughter and us, we had 3 cars and 2 of them were in the center of the city and we couldn't get them out. So we had 1 car. I lost my job. We were in the red zone. So we were kind of at the center of everything that happened. We were so lucky. My daughter and I were both in the city centre and neither of us were injured. I wasn't in the worst place, and I think that was also Ren Xue. I was with a friend from Canada that I knew in Saudi, and I'd taken a day off work and to show her around the city, and it was quite a cold day actually, the day the first really bad earthquake happened, and we were looking for somewhere to have lunch, and we were in a restaurant upstairs, and I thought, oh, this would be a nice place, and I stopped at the top of the stairs to say, hey, shall we have our lunch here? And I just stopped, and it was like somebody had hit me with a bat and said, no, don't do that. And I have only once in my life ever had something that came from somewhere else that guided my life, and it said no. And I stopped and said, okay, we can't have lunch here. And we went somewhere else. The other place that we went was somewhere I had had a birthday party after a retreat with somebody from the States that always attended the retreats. And so we went to another restaurant, and that one didn't fall. The other restaurant fell in the earthquakes, so at the very least we would have been injured. This restaurant in one of the oldest buildings in Christchurch didn't fall, and so I was okay. So in a way, Ren Xue guided me even through the earthquakes, because I'm not one of those people that has these things, but that moment of stopping on the top of the stairs and something saying no. Just, I get goosebumps from it now still. In the years since we are living out of town now, we had to rebuild somewhere else. We had to re-establish a new garden on a big paddock. And that garden has become something very important, very spiritual. It's enabled us to feed us and others. And I think people like coming to the garden too. So I think it's become more than that plot of land where you've planted some things. I hope it has. I try to use the garden to nourish the community as well, that the chi field, I hope, spreads out from there. Being able to trust the process has given me a grounding that I never had before. At this point, it's a physical grounding in a sense, but it's also very much for me a spiritual ground. So being able to let go and trust that something is looking after you, that in all senses of the word, not just the physical. I know that if I lost this space and lost this, I would still be okay. So because the process is there, I've seen that the process works, of letting go and letting something bigger than me guide the process. I know that process works. So if something else happened and we lost everything here, that wouldn't be, that I could deal with that. It's not, this place is not essential. It's wonderful now. We enjoy every moment of it, but it's not essential. The process is there, and I can trust the process.